Today's guest on Kowalski Analysis is none other than Anthony Trucks, and he is a former NFL athlete, American Ninja Warrior on NBC, international speaker, host of the All Shift podcast, and the founder of Identity Shift Coaching. He uses cutting-edge science and psychology to upgrade how you operate so you can elevate your life and business to reach your full potential. After being given away into foster care at 3 years old, being adopted into an all-white family at 14, losing his NFL career to injury and more, he learned how to shift at a very young age. And now his life mission is teaching others how to make shift happen in their lives. He teaches people to expand who they are, to reach their full potential, and which is why he created Identity Shift, a company focused on helping people close their identity gaps that are responsible for their shortfalls in potential and lack of success. He helps them find out who they truly are and develop into what they want to be so they can do the hard things easier, which means more success in all areas of their life. Welcome to Kowalski Analysis, Anthony Trucks.
Hey, man. Thank you for having me.
Is that weird when people introduce you like that?
No, it is what it is. I mean, I've had people read the full thing like that. I've had people just make their own thing. I don't know. I'm here. As long as people know who I am, that's all that works. That's all that matters, honestly.
I appreciate you coming on, man.
Yeah, of course.
I was watching your interview with Tom Bilyeu earlier, and just your story really is incredible, man. Like the stuff that you've overcame, and would love to really kind of talk about some of that. So your mom gave you up for adoption at 3 years old, right?
Yeah, me and my three siblings. So as four of us all got kind of kicked off into the system.
Do you are you connected to your siblings?
No, I am. So it's interesting. It's about what you expect for people that are siblings but didn't grow up together.
Right.
So we love each other, but we're not super close. I think my sisters are probably closer to each other. Well, I say those three have the same dad. I'm the only one with like my own, singular dad and same mom. So we kind of had interesting backgrounds, but I know where they live. I keep in touch periodically, but overall, yeah, it's an interesting dynamic, man. I love them. We do have contact with each other for sure.
I get it. I have a half sister down in Florida, and we were raised in the different states. So, kind of talk once or twice a year,
Yeah. Yeah, no, love them, but it's like, it was interesting, not having, like, my kids, when they say brother, sister, will have a vastly different connection because they're always with each other. It's a different relationship built.
Now, did they get adopted by the same family?
No, all different families. Yeah, all of us were all different families.
Y'all were split up.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm, definitely want to talk about what it was like being raised in an all-white family. Being adopted at 14 years old. But I'm curious, did you reconnect with your mother later in life?
No, yes, I did, but no, at the same time. When I was 14 was like the last time I remember like hearing from her, because I had to go to court and I'd pretty much look her in her eyes and say, I no longer want you to be my mom anymore, which is severing parental rights so I could be adopted. So I was 14 on a stand in Martinez, California, looking at this lady. It was super weird because like still my mom, and then didn't hear from her until I was 18. And when I was 18, about to get a scholarship for college, somehow she had caught wind, I don't know how, and called me and asked for one of my kidneys and for me to come live with her in Jacksonville, Florida. She's not a very sound of mind human. So this is her, I'm gonna die in 6 months if you don't give me a kidney. I considered it too. I was like, no. I eventually was like, no.
Yeah, take my football career away.
Yeah, it was weird. Then 2 years later, somehow she found my phone number. I went to school in Oregon. I got a scholarship for football there, and she ended up going with my grandma, her mom, somewhere like 2 hours north of Eugene in a town called St. Helens, and they got my number somehow randomly and started calling, and they wanted to come to games. And anyway, so I had a son my sophomore year of college, and she wanted to see him. And I was like, all right, you can see him if you will tell me the truth about what took place and why. Because her excuse for me being in foster care was that the government, the state, paid her boyfriend $10,000 to come beat her up so they could take the kids. I was like, that's not what I remember. I remember a lot of it, lady. So I was like, I'm a grown up now. Like, I don't have time for these childish things. Like, I have a son, I have a life. If you can tell me the truth, you can come around. Till then, don't call me back. And I have not received a call back.
Wow. So she's still alive?
I don't know. I got cast for a TV show called Relative Race. probably about 2.5 years ago, and they're trying to find her. And the odd thing was, they're like, the guys came back, were like, this is the first time, like, we don't like not find people. Like, we can't find her. Like,
Wow,
she has no death certificate, so she's still alive. But like, we legitimately cannot find this woman, and so she's somewhere out there.
man. Dude, so was reading on your website that up to 50% of kids placed in the system will end up homeless upon
Hmm.
emancipation, and
Yeah,
75% of prison inmates in the U.S. are former foster kids.
yeah,
So, I'm thinking just all that you went through, and there was some abuse when you were in foster care, and even torture. I think it was the word that I heard.
yeah, man. Weird
Um,
things.
how did you how did you get to this place where you are this healthy, well-rounded, happy, at least you look happy.
I'm a happy
Uh,
guy, man. Yeah.
you look super happy and successful. And, like it's so easy because I did like Landmark Forum, and
Hmm.
things happen to you and then you attach meaning to those things, and
Yeah.
it really jacks you up. And
Hmm.
then that thing plays out in your life because you're like, oh, well, my mother gave me up because I'm not, whatever. You could have attached a lot of meaning to that, and that could have really had some serious negative ripple effects in your life.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And it didn't happen to you. And I'm just curious, like how you were able to overcome that. Was it, or did it, and then you went through some kind of
Oh yeah, it did,
process or
man. It's all
therapy
part of
or?
the. That's part of it. Yeah, I wouldn't. I mean, therapy. It's interesting how. I mean, it wouldn't be like structured in a room therapy, but there's life in and of itself has weird ways of therapy. I like that you kind of mentioned the aspect of kind of going through it and placing a meaning to it, because I think that was the biggest thing for me and everybody, honestly. At some points in time, I don't know when exactly it took place, I started grasping the different meanings. And there's a statement somebody said is, life has no meaning except for the meaning you place upon it. Or no moment has a meaning except for the moment of the meaning you place upon it. And so for me, I went back and looked at a lot of different situations in life, I think, just over the years. I mean, it wasn't like all one fell swoop, like all of a sudden my brain exploded like, oh, the secrets of the universe are here. It was it was more of just little situations of kind of, because I've had a lot of other crappy stuff happen, man. That's kind of the weird thing of my life and everybody's life, obviously. But it was always these perspectives that allowed me to change. So at this point in my life, I look at everything with such a different perspective. I think that's the thing, is everybody sees it a certain way, and I find different nuances. Like some of the ones that allowed me to forgive my real mom, for example, were like this realization that you can't, like someone said, you can't get mad at a zebra for having stripes, right? It just has stripes. You can't get mad at it. And the thing is my real mom, she's a loopy bird, man. Like she is what's called a pathological liar. So she doesn't, like, she'll make things up and believe them to be real. I at one point was being told that she was like a NASA astronaut, that she founded Apple, that she was a Mensa member, and I believed them full heartedly. Like as a kid, I believed them because she said it to me in the age of like 6 to like 14. She just made these things up, and I gobbled them up like they were breakfast, man.
Wow.
And then you start getting to the point where you later on realize, at this point, I'm like, man, she just was never given the tools to be a good mom.
Mm,
Like her mom and dad are loopy too. It just, they're not sound of mind. So what do? You get mad at somebody because they didn't have the upbringing. Like it,
right.
it sucks. But what I realized is she wasn't doing things, and most people aren't doing things to maliciously hurt us.
Right.
They're doing things that are selfish to help themselves be better. So in her mind, it was going to help her not be stressed out with the kids, or maybe she thought it'd be better for us to be in different families because she couldn't handle it. Whatever it was, she didn't purposely say, "I'm going to put this kid in foster care so people will starve him and beat him." Like that wasn't the thought behind it.
Yeah.
It sucks that it happened. And so if I was to carry that all throughout my life, well, then I perpetuate that into my children. And then I have to live every moment of my life in dark, like in an emotional darkness, because of something that I had no control over and I can't change. So
Yeah.
it wasn't my fault. So when I started having those realizations, and I placed them in places for other situations. I had marital issues, and I've had stuff with my other parents. Like I said, you have stuff happen.
Hmm.
You just get to the point of like, man, I can genuinely forgive a human, and not just say it, but genuinely forgive and be like, man, this person needs a hug more than they need like a punch in the face.
Mm, that's good, man. Like, yeah, that is something Landmark says, is life is empty and meaningless. I actually got mad when they said it because I'm like, no, wait a second, hold on. Life has
Yeah,
meaning. I'm like, of course it has meaning. I'm sure it's in the Bible somewhere. I'm like,
yeah,
but they didn't mean that. They meant like things happen, and sometimes they don't mean anything. Sometimes they definitely, we're trying to figure out what they mean.
Mm-hmm.
And then we put ourselves in these prisons that we a lot of times can't get out of. I have friends that are just, you know, whatever political side they're on, they get created prisons, and it, you know, you support this person and it means this, and they get so filled with hate and you know, separate themselves from people that love them ultimately, and it's sad actually.
Yeah, the place, it's like I hear people say, well, this person didn't do this, which means they meant this. Like, no, it doesn't mean that. It just means that it didn't do that thing. Whatever else you put on there, even the reason why they didn't isn't the same reason that you're thinking it is. Well, how was I talking to recently? It was like, you know, this person, they don't care about me. And I was like, well, how is that? Well, because they didn't do this thing. I'm like, you can't extrapolate that into them because they didn't do this. It meant they actionably and purposely were trying to do this to you. That's a really slippery slope. You can just make anything up in that bubble, but that's not what it meant. It simply meant they didn't do this. They could have forgot. They could have had something else going on in the day. It doesn't mean they were like, I want to make your day bad. But people do that, and they will live from that space, and you can't convince them otherwise.
Yeah. No, it's so you can't judge people's intention. You know, like when the moment you start trying to judge someone's intention, then you can make anything mean anything, good or bad. If they do something good, you're like, oh, well, of course they did something good because they're trying to do. Or if
they love me, they'll never hurt me.
So you can't do you're screwed either way. When someone tries to judge your intentions, it doesn't matter what you do because they can twist it and make it mean whatever they want to make it mean. So it's like even a good action, you're just kind of screwed either way, you know, with a person like that. And no one wants people to judge their intentions. You know, everyone wants you to like, or they want you to judge they want you to judge their intentions. So meaning even if they screw up, you're like, but look, I was trying to do the right thing.
Yeah, you know? They don't know your heart.
Yeah,
it's fun is I'll never know somebody's brain, man. I think that's the biggest thing. Even in my marriage, I love my wife to death, but there's things where she'll get mad at me, and I'm like, you can't, it's like I don't want to say you can't get mad. Like my brain doesn't do that. Like that's not what my brain does. I wish it did this. Like I wish it would see that the way you see that, but I'm sorry. My brain just doesn't work that way. Doesn't mean I love you any less. Doesn't mean I love the kids any less. But my brain just doesn't click over the way that yours does for that thing. And so it's like when you can give people grace for not being who you want them to be in your head, like, dude, it makes the game so much easier. Like I think there's a statement I heard is, I'm not responsible for the person that you've created me to be in your head. Like I'm responsible for me. And once you get a chance to understand me and you grasp it, like if you know my heart, you know my true heart of intentions and how I would do things, look through that filter, not the filter of your emotion in that moment. Because in that moment, you might be in a bad mood. And it's something I did, maybe this bad thing now. And it's like, no, you know my heart. Like, you know my emotion. I would never actually do that. And you know that. So don't twist the words. Don't turn it that way. But people do these things.
They do. And it's sad because it's like community is so key, you know, like to becoming the best version of yourself, to reaching your full potential. Like, you know, the more good friendships you can have, the higher you're going to climb, faster even, you know, which is, I often think about the verse in the Bible where Jesus is like, hey, look, if you're presenting your gift at the altar and you remember that your brother has something against you, go and leave your gift. Don't even give it. Don't be religious. Don't just go be reconciled to your brother. And like people don't do that, you know, especially in the church. They just sit around and gossip about each other. But it's like community is so key, you know, like love God and love people. It's like the only two commandments. If we could just get those two right, we'd be good, you know, like
good. But probably I think people don't love themselves. How you love somebody else? You can't love yourself first.
Yeah.
That's a big piece of it, man.
Yeah. On your website, you said you were a self-aware kid. I feel like that might be your greatest gift, because if you're just arriving at this place like, hey, all these really bad things happened to me as a kid, but they didn't mean, you know, that I'm bad or unworthy or whatever. Like they didn't mean anything. Like, I don't think that that's normal, that somebody has that level of self-awareness without going.
I don't think I had it as a kid as much. I think it was just probably more like my adult years. I don't even know when. It was probably around, like, to be honest, probably no more than like 2014, 15 when some of these realizations started settling in. But I also, at the time, I think it was always naturally there because I wasn't even like angry then. You know, I still lived a happy, joyous life. I think the logical side of what I emotionally was feeling and the words kind of came together around then. But I don't know, man. I just never liked the feeling of just being in that darkness. I think that's the thing is there's that statement of the evil you know is better than the evil you don't. So
Hmm.
some people will float around inside of that evil that's just there. I know it. They get accustomed to it. They say you're addicted to your struggle. And after a while, I was like, why do I got to have any evil whatsoever? Like, I don't want any of it. I don't want the evil I know. I don't want the evil I don't. I just don't want any evil. So what does it look like to live in a place outside of that and not have to like embrace all the crazy that everybody else tries to put into my life? So I just started doing my own thing, man, and live my own life and making my own meaning and really just trying to do different than was done for me. And that was kind of the progression for me. So yeah, I guess it's not normal by any means, not even for foster kids, but for anybody. But it's probably a reason as to why I believe in doing what I do or why I'm cut out for this in the first place.
Is there a process? Because I think people want steps, like they're saying, okay, well,
Yeah.
that's amazing. I'd love to get to that place where
Hmm.
I'm not hanging on to the past or I'm not angry or whatever.
Yeah.
But versus just flipping a switch or being born with an amazing amount of self-awareness, which I still believe maybe that was part of the gift. But is there a process? Like, is there like, well, okay, look, man, this is what I do. I write gratitude every morning, or
Mm.
meditate, or is there some tangible steps that people can follow to get to that place?
I'm sure that, oh yeah, I mean, it's not something I've studied, but in my head, if I was to go through, like, I'm literally recounting in my head what like would look like. This isn't something I teach. I mean, the work that I do is an identity, and a heavy deal of it is wrapped in that. But like, I don't go into like forgiveness and self love and that kind of thing. It's not an area, but I do discuss it a lot. Like, it's a conversation I constantly have. And I think some of the things for me were early on realizing that I have control over my feelings based on actions that I take. I think there's this feeling for a lot of people. What anchors the pain is this helplessness. This happened to me. I could do nothing. I can do nothing. Why even try? Right? Like, why even, like, in relationships? People have somebody cheat on them. Why even try? I had no control over it. It just happened. There's nothing I could do. Why even try to be good? Why even try to keep this job? I got fired. I had no control over it. So people, they don't want to be, putting effort into something they can't have no control over. Then I think for me, I realized early on I always got to control, man. Like, even if it's something that you control, I got control in a sense of how do I show up in the way you need me to where I'm indispensable. Football was big for that. Football was this thing where people are like, who do I got to talk to? Who do I got to be? What age do I have to have? No, no, no. How good do you got to be? How good do you got to be so nobody will take you off the field?
Mm.
That's the key. Like, how can you be so powerfully phenomenal for that person's needs in that position? They'll never take you off the field. Now, you got to choose what field to play on, what game, what team to be on, right? You can't just go and say, like, how can I be the best Buffalo? Because you're not Buffalo. You know what I'm saying? Like, figure out where they really need a Buffalo if you're a Buffalo. But the idea is, like, for me, I look at when you start this process, first realize you got a ton of control because that'll kick you into a position of hope. Like, there's a space that hope creates if it's consistent and ongoing that is unshakable, man. It's an unwavering thing. For me, I have a creepy optimism that comes from this perspective of I have a control. Like, I can control situations, or at least control my role in that, so that if it does go wrong, I don't feel bad.
Mm.
Because I can literally be like, you know what? I did everything I can. Like, I did everything humanly possible, and you didn't. So I'm okay. I don't feel bad. I'm gonna move on with my day. You got to feel bad about this one. And so I think that's part of it, and that can give you alleviation of some of the pain and anguish in relationships and work and in self issues. Like, there's just some certain issues that people got to navigate. And I think the self awareness for me, if you talk about that, also comes from understanding and accepting that we suck. That's a big piece of it too. Like, we suck in certain areas. We weren't given all the tools. There's a lot of things that I bust and break in life and have busted and broken in life, but I wasn't given the right tool, man. It's like
Yeah.
saying go build that house with a hammer. Like, I need a saw and I need nails and I need wood. Like, I need a lot more tools.
Mm.
And when I realized for a lot of people are judging themselves based on the fact that they don't have this outcome, when really, if you look at it, why should you have had the outcome? Like,
Yeah.
relax, give yourself some grace, man. It's okay. Like, so go garner whatever information you have, learn the tools you have, give yourself a little bit of peace to suck at something and then figure it out. And I think for me, like, those are my self-awareness pieces that are really big, is try to gather the information and details about people and what goes on and the control I have, right? And then on top of that, realize, like, I wasn't given the tools, but what I'm doing now is I'm just trying to get them.
Yeah.
go through stuff, break things. I'm not a failure because I failed. I just tried this thing out with what I was given, and I learned what tool I needed, or I got that tool. Let me apply it again. And I kind of get this weird. I play a game with life, man. This is what I tell people all the time. I play a game with life, and the game with life is life tries to knock me down, and I see if I can get back up. And at this point in time, I have some really heinous, crazy things I come across or happen. It's weird, and I kind of get this weird like grin on my face, like, all right, life, here we go again. Like, so far I've won, man. Like, so far you've tried. Hey, you have tried, but hey, so far I've come out on top. Let's go again. And it's a weird puzzle I get to solve. And I look at life as a puzzle, man. I think that's the thing is I enjoy puzzles, and life is just another big puzzle. And when you can understand the moving pieces and you find out how to operate in your best skill set in that puzzle, man, you can win. You can solve the puzzle.
That's good. Yeah. I mean, I think I don't know if it was Tony Robbins said, life is not happening to you, it's happening for you. That's a great perspective to think
Yeah.
about. Like everything that's happening to you is happening so that you can have what you really want. You know, it's preparing you for that thing versus like, you know, falling into the woe is me attitude.
Hmm.
When you were talking about the hammer and not having the tools, I actually was thinking about that earlier where it was like, where we attach meaning to things like, oh, this person did this, so it means that. And it's
Yeah.
like, I think a lot of times it's just like we're all going through life with limited tool sets and we're just trying to, you know, we're tripping and stepping on each other's toes and we're just failing at things. People are doing their best with what they have. And then now we're attaching meaning to that thing when it's like, no, man, they don't have a saw, you know,
Yeah.
they're trying, but they just
Yeah.
don't have that thing or, you know, and when you really look at it like that, I think you're just a lot more likely to give people
Yeah.
grace, you
And
know?
you build a house differently. There's, I think, someone told me, that man, Will Smith had that story about one guy. The guy's building bricks. What are you doing? I'm just building something. What are you doing? I'm laying bricks. What are you doing? I'm building a cathedral. Like, there's a perspective. Like, some people are like, while they have the same tools and lack thereof, some people are there frustrated and sweating and cursing and just trying to build this thing. Some guys will walk around the yard with, you know, whistling and swinging a saw and like, I messed it up and we get different. There's a different perspective because they're building something different and there's not this anguish over the failure in the moment or what it's not just yet. And so for me, like, I'm the guy just whistling along, man, doing my thing. I'm breaking stuff and fixing things. My life is no easier than anybody else. If not, it may be harder because when you have success, you just create more problems. So I'm creating more problems in my life. Just it's just how it happens, man. But in the problems, you find that it's a gift to have a lot of these problems. It's a
It's,
gift to have to figure out how do I not pay the government more money because I make more money. It's a gift to figure out how do I navigate these situations with my kids because they get to go to private schools and I gotta make their life suck a little bit because it's just too good. Like these are good problems to have. And so I deal with them and some are really frustrating, but I do with like this like kind of perspective of like, man, it's a blessing to have this problem.
yeah. I love that story about Will Smith. Actually, I have a course called Unleash the Best You. It's a 6-week course, and I included that video of Will Smith because he talks about taking each brick. And he's like, you just lay this one brick as perfectly as a brick can be laid. And he's like,
Yeah.
eventually you have a, you know, whatever, a wall or a cathedral.
Yeah. That's it.
But I read Arnold Schwarzenegger's biography a while back, and he talked about basically everything Arnold did, he did with vision. He would visualize where he wanted to be. You know, started out when he was in Austria, he hung up pictures of these bodybuilders on his wall, and he would work out like 4 or 5 hours a day. He like imagined himself standing on the podium, them raising his hands up, what it was
Yeah.
going to feel like with everybody looking at him when he won, and
Hmm.
that's what he did with Hollywood and being before the governor of California. He just visualized it so clearly in his mind, and then he just went out and did it.
It comes
And
to you. I get it.
he said when he was in the gym working out, when he would work out 4 or 5 hours a day, everybody else would have these like grimaces on their face. They were just mad because of
Right.
all the pain they had to put themselves through to get in the shape that they needed to be. And he said, I always had a smile on my face. He's like, he's like, I knew every rep, every set was just one step closer to that goal. And I'm like,
Hmm.
man, that's such a great perspective because, you
Yeah.
know, ultimately you got to do it anyway. You know, you got to go through the shit,
Mhm.
whatever shit it is
It's
to
going
get
to
to your,
happen.
so
Find a way to do it happen.
you might as well enjoy it. You
I
know?
tell, I tell my kids the same thing. Like it's going to take place. Find a joy. I tell my youngest, like we're doing workouts and like he just wants to get through it so fast and like I don't want to do these push-ups and I'm like, dude, find a joy in the pain. the moment you find a joy within the hardships, like it will be so much easier of a life. My marriage works better because I can find joy in the pain. There are so many things my wife wants me to do. And like the strength of us is that I adapt. I'm not a pushover, but I adapt to what she wants to do. You want to do this? Cool. Like I don't have a care in the world. Let's just go do that thing outside of whatever I need done, which isn't much. Like, let's go do it. But like, there'll be things where like, I'll go and I will purposely, like, I'll just be happy. They're like, how are you happy? Like, I found a joy in it. I purposely tried to find something joyful in it. And what you go looking for, you will find. If you
Yeah.
go looking for a reason to be angry or have anguish or disdain, like you'll find that quickly. If you go looking for something to be happy about and find joy in, you'll also find that quickly.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great transition actually, because I wanted to talk to you about this. So you were, you were raised in a all white family, at least from the age of 14. And I imagine that gives you a different perspective when you look at the racial divide that's happening right
Mhm.
now in the country. And when I see people, for the most part, I haven't talked a lot about it. When there was the Blackout Tuesday, I posted the black square more
Mhm.
because I wanted people that were hurting to know that I empathize with their pain.
Yeah.
Like if you're hurting, I'm hurting with you. But you know, for the most part, I haven't said a lot about it because I feel like there's value, obviously, to bringing issues to light, injustices of any kind. But when
Mhm.
you focus too much on something, um, I don't know that that's healthy because then it starts to you find things that you're looking for, like you just said. So I have friends that are into flat Earth, and
Yeah.
they get so far into it, and I'm like, they start not taking care of their responsibilities and not focusing on the things that they really have control over and can change, and they get off into these weird things, and it's like, look, I don't know if it's true. It may be true. I don't know. I don't think it's true, to be honest,
I
but
don't either.
it does. How does it impact my life is what I'm it's like, is it going to change something for me? So like, how do you feel? Do you feel like the conversations that are being had now, are we paying too much attention on it, as I guess the question?
I mean, there's no too much. It's the same. I mean, it's interesting. We can tie into the same conversation. There is no right or wrong, too much, too little. It just is the conversation. So it's funny. This ties into the work I do with identity. You have like social identity theories and role identity theories, and it's a lot of it's a matter of how does somebody identify, and that I mean you could even tie, and we do. Science will tie success to identity, and I think the thing is when we see a lot of people today dealing with our stations of where do we stand, what is what, who are we, the racial issues. A lot of it is people don't grasp that it's not just their thoughts being attacked. It's not your buddy's flat earth thoughts being attacked. It's the fact that he has spent so much time and energy invested into something that if it was for nothing, he would feel horrible as a human because he will have thought he've wasted time. So they're not protecting just the concept, they're protecting who they are now, their identity now. And when you attack someone's identity, if I'm a mom or dad and you say, you're not a dad, what am I going to do? Puff my chest up, fight you on that. I'm a dad. Look, I got a kid. I spend time wiping diapers and butts and taking kids to school. And like, how dare you, right?
Right.
There's an investment and the return is I'm a dad. And so the concept that a lot of people are running into with the social aspects, whatever it is you have a duality, and it's a really scary thing. You have on one side of each fence, this is black person, white person, age doesn't matter. On one side, I have who I see myself to be. And say for white America and white privilege, I see myself as a good white guy or good white girl. I would never hurt a fly. I love people, da 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 da. And so when the world comes in and says, look, you got this privilege that's made it easier and you haven't purposely done it, but it's been disenfranchising other, demographics, the identity is being protected, not so much the aspect. I don't think people really 100%, all of them are like a racist. Let me, some are, no lie. Yeah, obviously some people are like, I don't like black people. Okay, yeah, you're racist, right?
Right.
But some people like they're seen as that. What they retort with is all lives matter, or you have the same opportunities. There's no such thing as racist, because what I have to do is I have to do one of two things right now when it comes to my identity. One is I have to go out and I have to pretty much assume that you're correct, and it takes me down. I feel less than. I feel small in my identity, and because of that, like, it's a pain I don't know how to deal with. It's a certain kind of guilt that was not purposely placed. Like, how do you feel guilty for something you didn't do on purpose? You know what I mean? Like, and then people attack you for it, so you don't know what to say, and you can't say words out loud right now. And then, or the other option is you demonize the opposition so you can keep your foothold. So most people, they demonize the opposition, not doing it to make other people feel bad, but to hold their position. It's the same conversation we had from before. It's not this thing to make you all feel bad, but it's to make sure I don't feel bad.
Right.
And so I see in a lot of our society right now, like, yeah, the conversation is crazy and people are talking, but a lot of it is based around, like, how do I keep my position? How do I hold my foothold? And that's why nobody wants to listen to anybody else, because to listen to somebody else would mean that I have to take a little bit of a chip off of who I am, off my block. And I don't want to do that. Do loan, but God forbid I ever have to feel bad about something. And it's a weird conversational dynamic on both sides. Because in Black America, same thing. White America is like, you had opportunities and we opened these doors. And then the position of I'm disenfranchised and I didn't have opportunities and don't have X, Y, and Z. It's like, I get that. Because, yeah, 100% institutionalized racism existed. You know, if you want, systemic racism exists. But I do have opportunities. They are just harder for me as a Black man. It just has been harder. There's just different conversations I have to have, different ways I get looked at, ways I have to think about what I wear when I go outside, and, you know, groups I go into. So it's like that's something that I'm aware of. And so I also realize, like, I can't get pissed at everybody. I got to find a way to work differently. And so I will secede my identity to certain aspects. Not that I'm losing myself, but I also see the ego portion of it so I can work. Because if not, I could easily still be broke and unhappy and sitting there blaming other people and being mad because this issue arises and this issue exists. And it does exist, but, like, I don't want to be there. So right now, I do got to work out of it. And I'll make when I get to the top of the mountain, then I can make my statements and I can make my claims and I could yell and shout and complain. But we got to get to the top of the mountain right now, because nobody's listening to the person down at base camp. You know, so it's like, but this is, again, a back and forth weird position in our racial, climate right now. And I look at all of it like, we all as a society, the most important thing we can do right now all is have personal growth. That seriously, I think that is the massive, like, the big key, because the personal growth will allow you to simply listen and have conversations and, like, not anchor down in something that you've been doing for 50 years because you've been doing it for 50 years. But like, hey, like, that was crappy back then, Bob. Like, it's still crappy now, Bob. Just because your grandpa did it and you did it, it's all you know, and you got friends that do it. You don't want to be ostracized by your friends. Doesn't mean you batten the hatches down and keep, using swear words and racial epithets. You don't just keep doing that just because you've been doing it for a while. Like, that's kind of, and you don't just demonize all white people because you had some bad run-ins and because of, a bad society that, yes, exists. Like, that doesn't help anybody, because we all want a peace. We want this calm. We want, white America who's frustrated. They want it to go back to a calm, peaceful, go to the grocery store, there's no heat, right? Black America wants to go back to a society where it's not having love to right, and that we, get to a place where there's equal aspects. And I don't think any of us get there when we just keep yelling at each other all day.
Yeah.
We're just going to keep spiraling up.
If anything, the country's way more divided than it's ever been, or maybe not than it's ever been in my memory or my lifetime.
Yeah.
And so
outwardly,
the fact
publicly.
the fact that everybody's so focused on it, it makes people more racist, not less racist. Like, the way I've handled it personally is I've chose to ignore it. I hang out with my friends of all different races and colors. We take pictures of us having a good time. And I just, like, look, I think it was Morgan Freeman I watched in a video where he talked about, how to make it go away. Stop paying so much attention to it. And I kind of agreed with him. Like, I'm like, I don't think that, you're just talking about it. And, and of course the media, I just feel like they're behind a lot of it, where they just drum it up.
Spin it up.
Yeah, they spin it up because of ratings or whatever. And it's like, I don't feel like that is the way out. Yeah, we need to talk about it, but I feel like when you pay too much attention to something, anything, you're going to find evidence for it everywhere. Like, literally, I'm not saying it doesn't exist, because I do believe it exists. I drop a good friend of mine off Willis every day in the hood, and it's predominantly black. And, like when your grandparents were, dealt that deck of cards, and then it's being,
Perpetuated and taught.
yeah, it's perpetuated. And not only that, but it's the pervasiveness of the fact that, like, the deck is stacked against you. There's and then you start believing that the victim mentality, and then you lose hope. Like you just mentioned, hope, where you're like, well, if the system's rigged, then I can't, because you don't believe that you can. Like if I look at my own life, my mom was 14 when she got pregnant with me. My dad never paid child support. My mom had an 8th grade education. We grew up a block from the projects. I could, said, well, shit, the numbers for someone like me to succeed are pretty low. So, that becomes my out, versus like saying, look, it might be harder for you, you might have to work a little bit harder, but you can do it. You live in the greatest country in the history of the world. 45 million people every year waiting to get in America, like, because they call it the land of opportunity. You see people come here from other countries. They don't speak the language. They have no family here. They know no one. They're penniless, and they make it. They open businesses and make millions of dollars. And we want to say the system doesn't work. No, the system works. If anybody couldn't succeed, somebody like that should not be able to succeed here if it was the system's fault. Now, are all those things you said true? Yes, I do believe 100%. Racism exists everywhere. It exists in all white countries and all black countries. You have tribes in Africa killing each other.
Forever, yeah.
Right? The tribes are killing each other. They're racist against another tribe. This is a sin issue, not a skin issue. Like it's our sinful nature that makes us do this stuff. But to say, like, I mean, we're at the point now where, like, they just want to burn the whole thing down. Like, what are we going to do?
Yeah.
Like, just say the system. No, we live in a great country, and it's almost like people, they don't see the acres of diamonds around them, because you want to.
Well, only 5% of Americans ever leave the country every year. So only thing you're gauging everything off is what's happening in your own hometown or your local news and the people that you know. And I think that's a big part of it too. I think education is a massive, huge piece of it. I think a lot of us are misinformed and miseducated. Because you got to think, it's interesting you said that racism is worse now. I don't think it's worse now. I just think it's like no one's had a reason to stoke the fire to see who's really got those feelings. This has just allowed people's feelings to get anchored deeper. I'm sure you've had some people flip over because, somebody goes out, does some weird hate crime because so yeah, It's happened. But I think a lot of these dormant thoughts that no one had a reason to actually talk about. And I think it's broadened the conversation. I think Jay-Z talks about how, Trump, to an extent, was good for those who think he's a racist, and I don't. But I think that they think he's good because it brings all these hidden feelings to the surface for people to have to deal with. And I agree that part of it is you don't focus on it. But for some people, they can't not. I get, like, there's a perspective of, like, if I want to fix this, I can't give it all this heat. I got to operate in a certain way. But then it's like even floating back to that, just operating and not thinking about it. You then go back to somewhere the systemic issues arise. Like, then no one's, checks and balances on why there's so many more black incarcerations and so many more, police officers that are doing X, Y, and Z. But the thing is also on top of that, it's odd. This is another thing. You have a system where the disenfranchised, they don't want to be in a position that they, how to explain it? Best way to say it, black people, a lot of them don't want to be cops. I don't know if that makes sense. They don't want to be judges. There's not this aspiration for that. Those are bad guys, whatever. But then it's like, yeah, but then we're complaining all day that they're the ones, doing X, Y, and Z. But what if we could fill up more of those offices with people that look like us? Absolutely. Even if they don't want us in there, there's gonna for sure be. I've seen videos of guys down south who are like Black Lives Matter, and there's dudes beating this guy, spitting on him, with the sheriffs, 2 of them standing right there watching. That's their cultural thing. You're not going to go be a black police officer in Vidor, Texas or something. Like, it's not going to happen, But there's certain aspects of we've got to start building into those areas. And so, like, yeah, man, it's a tough discussion because it is something that's been around for millennia, if you want to call it. It's been around since humans been around. There's been racial issues forever. Yeah. We're in a society which is still the best country in the world. I fully believe that, even if we have this craziness going on, which we do. Other places are not great, man. They just aren't. I mean, they're good, but like I went to UK one time and I was, walking around and visiting thing, and my wife didn't notice it. She's Filipino and Puerto Rican, but I go places and like I'm dressed nice, walk in nice areas of town, and everybody like I'm from inside places, inside buildings. I have eyes following me, and like it's these puzzled, perplexed, like who in the world is this guy? Because I don't belong in that position. Like I could tell. And then if you see most of the workers I saw out there, they
What
were,
position do you mean? Because
the
of the
position
girl?
of no, just the the being able to shop in nice places, had a nice
Oh,
peacoat
okay.
on. Just now,
Yeah.
I'm obviously, I'm sure that there are, don't get me wrong, there are obviously well-off African American, black people. I don't even call it African Americans, African UK. I don't know what you call it out there. You know what I'm saying?
African England's?
But
Yeah,
it
I
was
know
like,
what I mean.
yeah, you go to the jobs and it's like most of the people that looked like me were working like the, typical, like it's, cleaning, janitorial, driving buses. Same as would be here to an extent.
Hmm.
But I could feel, I got looked at differently in Rome. People would drive by and like make monkey noises, like this is not just
Wow.
an American thing. Like this is just what goes on in the world. And so for me, it's like, as much as people are pissed it's happening in America, like it happens everywhere, but you don't know because you don't go anywhere. And then all we have is the news stations that are controlled by massive, weird operational things. Even our social media is censored. Everything that goes out is not all that can go out, So
Yeah.
we live in this weird vacuum that we think is the end all and gives the truth. And dude, it doesn't. My brother works in the military. He works in some interesting areas that I can't really discuss too much, but he's like, one of the biggest problems that we have right now are foreign governments infusing stuff into our media stream through
Hmm.
social media before they can be taken down. Fake accounts that post videos that just get steamrolling energy, and the next thing you know, the American people are up in an uproar. He's like, a lot of the things you are seeing right now that are inciting anger, they're not even from America.
Wow. I saw this video. It was an old video. I want to say it was like from like the 50s or the 60s, where they were interviewing this former like communist spy, and he was talking about how they believed that the weakness in America was through the racism. There was something with the racial tension, and how
Mm-hmm.
if you could infect our thinking, that it would eventually play out and we would just kind of destroy ourselves. It
Yeah,
was crazy. I mean, how accurate this thing from like 60 years ago is to what we're going through now.
yeah,
And I would
for sure.
totally would believe that, that there's, we look at what we did to the USSR. I mean, or whatever it was, Russia
Mm-hmm.
at the time, where we got into the space race, and we forced them to bankrupt themselves. And then they went through some bad stuff after that. I mean, I heard it was like
Yeah,
the wild, wild west in Russia, where, you could literally buy a baby or a kidney. Like it was like that.
I
It was
would
just,
not doubt it,
it
man.
was so
Russia's an
like,
interesting monster.
yeah, it was just so crazy over their lawlessness and, organized crime. And so, they probably have some feelings about America that if they blame us for putting them through that. So I totally wouldn't be surprised if it
Yeah.
was them. But you mentioned earlier, you mentioned Trump, and, I'm a Trump supporter.
Mm-hmm.
But initially I was a Ben Carson supporter. I went to his rallies. I met Ben a couple times. I
Yeah.
read his book, America the Beautiful. I love Ben Carson. I love the way he thinks about, he really has a firm understanding of the way America was supposed to be, with term limits and flat tax. And well, flat tax wasn't, that's his idea, but I do like it. And he just really has a great understanding, I think, of what America can and should be. And Candace Owens, I'm a big fan of hers, actually. And I'm like, for me, it's not race, it's ideology. It's the way
Yeah.
you see it,
Mm-hmm.
the way you see the world. The meaning, like, look, there's certain things that exist, don't exist, but here's the way out. The way out is do the right thing and work your ass off. That's it. Regardless of whatever situation I was born into, you were born into, this is the way out. Do the right thing, delay gratification, discipline. Like there's certain principles that just work, and it doesn't matter. I mean, yes, okay, it may be a little harder for you. I'm not going to say it
Yeah.
won't be, but
Yeah.
that is the way out for all of us. And that's why, I'd vote for any of them. Ben was my number one pick. When he didn't
Mm-hmm.
make it, I voted for Trump because,
Yeah.
I wanted an outsider in the office. But to me, it has
I get
nothing
that.
to do with skin color and everything to do with ideology. Because I've seen people, welfare, ruin their lives. When I would grow up in Brooklyn, I saw people in the projects. My mom was friends with this one girl in
Hooked on the
particular.
system.
She had 3 kids, 3 different fathers, and she got a nice, and listen, they talk about you talk about a lot of the problems with the African American communities. The fathers aren't in the homes, you know. So she had three kids, three different men, no father in the picture.
Hmm.
One kid turned out pretty good. The other two are in jail, and one of them killed somebody and is in jail for life. And she got welfare and never did anything with her life. She could have worked. She was healthy, and
Hmm.
I seen they give you enough to do nothing,
Yeah,
just
that's a problem.
just enough to
Yeah.
do nothing, and then humans by our nature we choose the path of least resistance for the most part, most of us. And if we're giving that opportunity, we will, and we'll never self-actualize. And I just cannot get down with that, man.
No,
You
again,
know,
I think there's definitely a perspective I agree, but not. I wouldn't say I fully agree with it because there's like a duality in my brain. So I see that side, right? So I'm not a Trump supporter, but I'm not against Trump supporters, and I'm also not a like. I'm not even anti-Trump. To be honest, I would probably say it's a weird thing. Like I have probably 60% Republican views, 40% Democratic views. I agree with exactly what you're saying. Is there's the longer you like, if I tell my kid every day clean your room, but then go clean their room, they never learn how to clean their room. Like they'll never
right,
clean their room correctly because I keep doing it for them. And so I get that. And I think one of the major problems we run into is like there is an area for Black America to go out and do stuff, but it is vastly harder. It just
yeah,
the systemic racism is so pervading that it's just very difficult. Like there's areas that I would expect I would have no problem for me, but I'm an educated, well-spoken, happy, joyous guy. But even I get in moments where it's like I just felt that like that was a Black moment, we'll call it in America. And so I think what ends up happening is people will see, you know, guys and girls like me who are doing great, and then we even still get the back door, they get the long arm of it. You know, there's a story I read about a guy who was you know, he tells a story from the token Black guy or something like that. And it's about this, you know, he's a kid. He's in the military now, and he's like, you know, I'm West Point, great, everything. And he's like, I still got kind of, you know, hemmed up, and you know, I get issues. So it's like you have these authoritative situations where there's a group in power. Even if I'm doing well, I get those moments like, damn it, why even do well? Why
right.
even try, right? So it's much easier to, like you said, path of least resistance. I
Mm,
don't know if all my work's going to turn out. I don't know if I feel like sacrificing. I got to pay bills. I don't want to lose this money coming in by trying to get this money over here. It's not even always just a laziness. It definitely is sometimes, but it's like this back and forth dynamic of also there's not a hope, there's not a beacon, it's not a North Star that looks like that can be possible, and there's not this lineage or generational like success that leads anybody to think like it could happen for me.
right.
Like I'm a weirdo in a sense of I operate in my own separate bubble. To be totally honest, for a few years when I was younger, I used to tell people like I feel like I'm raceless, like I'm just a. And then now as I get older, I'm like that was very naive, Anthony. Like you're not you're not a Black guy just because you don't feel like it today. Every day you're that guy, you know. But the perspective of that allowed me to work without having the immediate connotations of what might go wrong. Because here's the other part of it is if I wake up, like you said, every day thinking it's stacked against me and why even try, I'm going to think every moment's like that when not every moment is like that.
Yeah,
There are some, but it's far in the minority of it. It may be 10% of my interactions or situations in my life have been that, where 90% have been good people, no problems. I grind, I grow, I develop a skill set, I learn. And for me, I think that's one of the things that we do need because I don't know Ben Carson's ideologies. I've heard some of Candace Owen. I think for her, and even like a Charles Barkley or certain people like a Stacey Dash, there's this immediate from the Black community, the moment that you don't agree with their viewpoints and you have to make them have to visit the fact that I could be wrong, which we talked about earlier, you're an Uncle Tom. And I feel like in the beginning, she actually had some valid points. And from the things I've saw as of late, I get when Black community just ostracizes her, pushes her away. It's like, well, if you're not an insider, what do you become? An outsider. So
mm,
now it's a stage which is like, well, if I'm out here, I'm just going to lean into it. And as human beings, we all desire acceptance. So her accepted group is not going to be the group that was Black America as much anymore. So her accepted group, what do I got to say to get myself to be accepted? I think there's certain things that she says that are like, yeah, I get that, but that's super twisted the way you're making those words sound. So
yeah. She
I
stirs the
get,
pot. She's stirring the pot more
she
now.
does a lot more, but it's okay because everybody we as a society need these to happen, these people to exist, to have these conversations. So as long as this comes out, it's like then people talk about it. There's another blonde woman who works like in I don't know CNN somewhere that went like the Trevor Noah show, had discussions and like it's just it's you stir the pot, and I'm like the pot stirs, people get pissed at them. And that's their exact job. And I'm glad we do, because it incites an emotion and it starts a conversation. And whether you agree with them, their ideology is 100% or not, at least you've entertained the ideology, which may give you a perspective that could adjust yours. So I'm not against any of them. I don't believe that what people think is like Trump's a racist and a bigot. Like, maybe. I mean, he probably said some things, but at the end of the day, like, he's just another guy in America. The president's most of the time a puppet. I mean, he's doing his thing.
He was raised in a very rich white family, so I'm sure that he's probably having to battle all those years of whatever he was surrounded with, like anyone else that would have been in his position. But when you see him pass things, first off, record low black unemployment during his term, his first 4 years, passed prison reform for people that are people that were locked up. I think there was something called red zones that he was highly influential in getting passed. Like, he's done a lot of good stuff, and that's, like, you have to look at that record and say, okay, well, a racist person doesn't do that, but they also
weird things for me. I'm going to cut you off. This is the one thought, and I'm going to leave this seed and you go with this. This is the one thing that throws, because he hasn't a lot that I've read. He also has done not a lot, and it's also cabinets and who knows. But here's what I've always looked at: if the way that I see a person held in we'll call it gray standings by certain groups tells me a little bit about the person. And I know he's denounced racism and everything, but it's always odd to me that the racist white Americans see him as their poster child. The KKK, so that I think becomes the far-reaching problematic aspect for his area is, if you are all great, why is it that all of these people hold you like as their deity? You know what I'm saying? Like that. If everybody's like, hey, it's the cannibalist king, like, hell, I don't care about no cannibals. I'm not eating people. I'd like denounce it, like, bro. But at the same time,
he denounced David Duke and the KKK and all that. And there's a lot of black Trump supporters, man. There's a lot, and that's something I heard Candace say, and she said, black Democrats become black conservatives, or black liberals become black conservatives, not the other way around. Like, when you're black, or even if you're in the inner city, you're lower class white, you are Democrat by default, because you think Democrat is the party of the working man. So I grew up. Yeah, and then so at some point though, you get out of the brainwashing, as what I look at it as, like, wait a second, I don't know if this is the answer. Like, you look at Baltimore's been ran by Democrats for 60 some years, and we're like not doing much better than we've ever done. If anything, we're doing worse. People are moving out. There's a population exodus. Crime is through the roof. Setting new rate records for the murders every year, and they have no idea what to do about it. I'm like, I don't think that the answer is just, defund the police. I don't think that's the answer.
I don't think that is either. I don't think of it from a race standpoint. I think of it as, I need police officers. Yeah. I'd like them to know how to do their job.
Absolutely.
Every world government has them. But there's a lot. We have like one more minute. I got another podcast again. I've had to join our conversation for sure. We could probably do this all over again and keep going deeper into the rabbit hole, I'm sure.
That's the piece that's missing. To protect and to serve. That is the piece that I think they
we do need that. We do. My best friend's a police officer. It's not this biased. It's more of like I bought a home in Texas, and then the previous owner for some reason decided to go stop back by when I wasn't there, and like somebody saw him coming out of the house, and it's like, who was I going to call? Like, my black homies, hey, roll up on him. Like, no, I need to call the police. Like, hey, and they were good. They showed up. They did their thing. So it's like, do we need them? We just need to have a better training. You train them. We need more people that look like the people that they're serving and protecting. We need more of that. I think that will help it. I won't fix anything. It'll help the situation.
Dude, super fascinating conversation. Thank you so much for coming on. Just tell everybody how they can find you, what you have going on. I know you have some programs, you have a couple books, the GPS, and then
GPS planners. It's a planner. I got a book I'm writing now. I'm still playing with the title of it, whether it's going to be called Identity Shift or Slow or Go, but it's different. But it's all about identity. I have coaching programs where I guide people through how to make an identity shift. We didn't talk about much today, which is totally cool, but if you like me and any way you guys enjoy my thoughts, there's more to what I talk about to be able to have people reach their full potential in life. Yeah, man. Go to Instagram @AnthonyTrucks. You'll find me there.
Yeah, I'm going to put all the links in the show notes when I post this. What's the future hold for you?
Future holds for me in work or career?
What, are you going to do the American Ninja Warrior? You done with that?
I'm retired with Ninja Warrior. I got a TV show I'm going to Portugal to film here pretty soon. I can't say anything about. But the future, man, just living life and building up the aspect of my brand from we'll call it a mental standpoint. I think most guys that look like me in my space, they're very powerful orators and they share thoughts. But the difference between me and my counterparts that have fair skin is they're teachers, man. They're phenomenal teachers, and they get in and teach you things you can apply to your life. So I've tried to do both. I'm a phenomenal orator. I speak, but then I like to be able to say, here are my curriculum-based concepts you can apply to your life, to where I can actually have a deeper reaching impact on people's lives.
Do you do any acting?
No, not yet.
No. You know T.C.
Someday.
Stallings? Did you ever see War Room?
Uh-uh.
War Room? You never saw War Room?
Never saw War Room.
It was a Christian movie, but yeah, check him out. He's out in L.A. I could introduce you to him.
I would love an introduction.
Yeah, he's jacked. He actually played. He wanted to be in the NFL. He played like CFL and maybe Europe or something. But he was probably about your age. He's African American, good-looking guy. Anyway, I'd love to make an introduction. Maybe.
Yeah, that'd be cool, man. Count me in.
All right, we'll do. I'll do that on Instagram as soon as we get off of this. But hey, thanks again for coming on, Anthony. Really appreciate your insights.
Very welcome.
All right, talk to you later, brother.
All right, bye.
See ya.